Hi everyone and welcome back to the Colour Cave where we like to play with art stuff. My name is Jem and today we're back in the Circle of Life for part 5 of our chatorial and we're just going to keep working our way down the page. So the main focus today is going to be this sort of cliff edge down to the water and we're going to pick up some of these little areas round about in our deer, so that when we come to our next video we can really focus on the water all the way down. So in order to start this section here, I'm going back to the same colours that I used for the mountain range. So just in case you need a reminder, I'll pop them up on the screen for you. You'll see them here. And these again are the Faber-Castell Polychromos pencils, and it's all colours we've used before, it's not any new pencils. So we have the dark indigo, the burnt sienna, sanguine and burnt ochre. And that's where we're going to start. If I add any more pencils into the mix as I go, I will also put them up on the screen for you and I'll show them in my swatch book as well, so you can pick an alternative if you don't have the Polychromos pencils. Righty-ho, so let's make a start and we'll chat a bit about what's going on down here. So one of the things I was kind of giving a bit of thought to is, obviously we've talked a lot about light sources in this picture, and again this is about trying to find a balance between what is aesthetically pleasing and what makes sense in terms of the light source. So in theory, because this is stepped down this way, this is technically going to be in shadow, so really we should be using similar colours to what's going on up here. I don't want it to be too dark and dingy though. So we're going to lighten it up a little bit, and maybe you could use the reason that there's maybe a secondary light source coming from somewhere else. I don't quite know how that works in the middle of nowhere when the sun is high in the sky, but you just make it up as you go along. But really what I'm thinking is I probably won't use an awful lot of the burnt ochre, which was our palest colour. So as a base I'm going to use the sanguine and we'll work from there. So kind of like I did last time, I'm just going to blitz this entire area. So I'm just going to get a layer of this down absolutely everywhere. Light hand, hold the pencil quite far back. You can see like I'm doing here. And that kind of forces you to lighten your pressure up, because if you wanted to press hard, you would really have to press down with the pencil. So we'll just pop this down all the way over. Now the thing that I like about this section as well, we've got lots of hatching, so that is going to help us in terms of our actual colouring. So I don't have any particularly exciting stories for you today. I did have my some family visiting at the weekend, because we're allowed to do things like that now. And our new, well I say new baby niece, she's a year old, but we haven't obviously been able to see much of them. So my sister-in-law and her husband brought baby to see us, and she's just the sweetest, most chilled out baby ever. She's absolutely amazing. Pip's never seen a small person before, she's never seen a baby, and we wanted to introduce them, but we wanted to be very careful about it, because when Pip gets fearful she barks a lot, and she does it with basically anything that's new to her, and I didn't want her scaring the baby. So yeah, she barked at the baby, and baby kind of decided that she didn't like that, and then after about 10 minutes Pip was up sniffing her feet because she had no socks or shoes on, and Mr. Jem had baby in his lap. And he was playing with her and all the rest of it, and Pip came up to sort of investigate to see what this small thing was, and after she sniffed her feet, I think that's when she realised that it was just a small human, and everything was fine after that. So good experience for both, because baby is not scared of anything, and she loves dogs, and she thinks Woo's absolutely adorable, and she just points at her and laughs at her. It's the sweetest thing. Okay then, so let's talk about what we're going to do here. So we've got some contours to think about, and I really like this. This is really aesthetically pleasing to me. So that'll give us, we'll be able to get a bit of depth in there as well. But I'm thinking especially in behind this waterfall, obviously that area is going to be wet in behind there, so that's going to be really dark. So we'll use a lot of indigo around these two little sections here. But see, we've got these contours wiggling in and out as well, so we can vary the dark parts and the light parts, and that's going to give us a nice perception of like the 3D space rather than just this, like one flat colour. And maybe we'll use a little bit of some of the lighter pencils as well. So once again, I find it easier to start with the darkest areas, and I know a lot of people don't feel the same, but there's not really going to be much in the way of highlights here. So I'm taking my next pencil down, which is the burnt sienna, so that's like our darkest brown pencil, and I'm just going to start in here. Now the hatching lines are going up and down, so we want our pencil strokes to match that. And we can just start by building up a wee area under here, a couple of layers, and as we come out we can graduate this out and just lighten our pressure as we head further out from under this waterfall area. Now we can bring this further out later, you know, we don't have to decide right now exactly how far out that's coming. And I want to keep this quite slim on this side because the waterfall, it seems to be, when it's coming down over the edge of that cliff there, it's going that way slightly. So I'm thinking, because you can see this curve here, so it's obviously going whoosh. So if it's heading in that direction slightly, then you're not going to see perhaps as much of a dark area on this side. Or maybe it just won't come out quite as far. Now I'm trying to avoid, there are a few little bubbles popping about here, so I'm trying to avoid them. And the same, basically every time this edge tucks in or crinkles round, or whichever other not technical phrase you want to use. So in here is going to be darker. And again, just maybe run a little line there. And then the same in here. I say we are going to build this up, so it doesn't need to be horrendously accurate. There's actually one in there as well, because there's just like a final fold on this right hand side. And we'll do the same over here. So the other train of thought that I have as well is naturally, I mean, this is going to be pretty moist in here. There's grass growing on top of it, which means there must be moisture in this sort of first layer, you know, this first section here. But also there's water pouring out everywhere. So this layer of soil or layer of terrain might actually be quite uniform in colour, but that would be really boring. So again, the logic I'm kind of taking is round where the water's pouring out, just a bit like we did with the waterfall. Just take this same pencil and we can indicate here that these parts might be dark, and obviously gravity is going to help to pull that water source down. So it's more likely that the bottom part of these little mini waterfalls is going to be darker rather than the top edge. And again, that's just purely a thought from me, you know, I'm not saying that that's a hard and fast rule, obviously it's not, you can make it up as you go along, but just to make it a little bit more interesting. This water's trickled down from up the mountain and it's found its way down. And the other thing as well is, because there's a large body of water here at the bottom, I would imagine that this part here would be particularly hydrated. So again, all along the edge of the water I feel would be darker, just because the earth is going to be soaked more. And you just have to decide what, you know, how far up you want to take that. And I don't think I want to go too far. So again, I just little circular motions and working my way up, and the further up I go, the more I'm lightening my pressure. And just the same thing, like we can build it up in layers if we want it to be more intense later on, then that's what we can do. We're really just marking it out just now. And if you've been following along up to that point, you know, we've kind of done that with the whole picture, so you'll understand where I'm coming from with that. It's just a really nice way to do things, because it helps you kind of plan things out, but also if you decide that it's not going to work for you, it's a lot easier to fix or add to or change than if you just go, you know, full pelt on a particular section. And again, it doesn't have to be uniform either, because if you make it exactly the same height all the way along, it's not going to look very natural. It'll look quite regimented. And again, when we're dealing with things in nature, very rarely is everything absolutely, you know, pinpoint accurate in terms of things like that. There we go, so that's quite a good start. So I'm going to go back to my sand grind pencil now. And I'll start over here on the right hand side, again, just as I've done in previous sections. And let's start with this little edge here, just because it's there. So working on top of what I've already done, my darkest area, I'm just going to put another layer of sand grind down here. Mostly keeping up and down pencil strokes. And maybe this little edge here, just the very edge, would be lighter. Now again, that's quite a good idea, because it's going to give us a nice contrast to the next sort of tucked in dark section, but you're not going to be making the whole area too light. So let's grab our burnt ochre, which was our lightest brown, and maybe we'll just run a little bit of that down the edge, you know, just like a sliver there. Put down a couple of layers, and then back with our sand grind, and we can start blending that in. So more of a circular motion now, but I'm keeping it like, it's more like an oval stroke, like this kind of idea. It's like halfway between scumbling and flicky lines. Can go up from the bottom as well. And we can start to build up our colour now. Yeah, so I actually had a very relaxing weekend, and the only reason that we've been able to do it was because the weather has been really changeable and we've not been able to get going properly with harvest. Otherwise, Mr. Jem would have been flat out in his combine. So it's actually been quite nice. We've had a reasonably relaxing weekend. And we also went for a pint on Sunday as well, just Mr. Jem and I, which was really nice. I really enjoyed it. I was very relaxed. Happy camper. Now that I've got a couple of layers of that sand grind down, you can see I've left a couple of paler areas just now, and that's really just to add interest and texture. You don't have to do that if you don't want to, but I want to start working on darkening down sections now, so I'm nipping back with my burnt sienna, and I'm going to start in that little crease there, just so that I can see what I'm working against when it comes to that edge, and then here, to really start laying the layers down. And then I'll just pop a little bit of this in here. Pressing quite hard there just because it's a wee tight space. I don't want to have to keep going back in. Now I kind of feel as well that there might be a darker part just on this top edge, so I'm just going to run this pencil, same pencil, along there, not pressing too hard though. I'll just bring that down a little bit. And then go back to my sanguine and really get some rich colour going here. So it's very, very rare that Mr. Jem and I get a chance to go out. And I mean, it wasn't like an outrageous, you know, sesh. It was just literally out for a drink or two. Sat in the sunshine for a wee while. The sun did come out for us, which was also very nice indeed. I thought that was very considerate of the sun. So yeah, and most of the pubs have an, you know, like an outside seating area, again just because of COVID. So we'd chosen to sit outside anyway, and we met a man with a little dog, and it was a Patterdale Terrier. And they're not that common. One of the boys that works for Mr. Jem actually has two, and I haven't seen a Patterdale Terrier for a long time. They're not a very common breed. So it was really nice to see another one as well, and she was a lovely wee thing. She came over to say hello to us and just to see if we had anything that was maybe worth eating. And we'd left our dogs at home. So that was, yeah, it was really, really nice. I really enjoyed it. Okay, quite happy with that for now. I'm going to leave this pale area just now. I might come back to it and change it. I'm not entirely sure. But you get the general idea of what I'm planning for this piece of area, because all these sections are going to be quite similar now that I've explained it to you. So I'm just going to start working my way across. So yeah, it's just nice to have a relaxing afternoon. It was rather good. I say it's so rare as well. Oh, love it. Also had a bit of an indiscretion with my VR headset the other day. For our newer cavers, I bought an Oculus Quest 2 headset at Christmas time. That was kind of like our present from ourselves to ourselves. Just nipping over with this burnt ochre now just to do my edge down here. Yeah, and I use it probably 2 or 3 times a week. I'm using it for exercise just now because I am too heavy to run on my old knee injury. If I go out and run on it, I'm going to hurt myself. So I've been using it for exercise, and it's been absolutely amazing. It's been so good. And I, for the first time, and my hands were sweaty, and I took the headset off and I dropped it. And all of our floors downstairs are hard floors, so you can imagine the noise when it hit the ground. And I thought, oh my goodness, because that's an expensive piece of kit if you drop it and do something to it. So I just about had a heart attack on the spot, as if it wasn't bad enough already that I was sweaty and out of breath from exercising. But I'd actually, like, my heart jumped into my mouth, and I thought, oh my goodness, if I've broken this, I don't even know if I can, you know, get it repaired. I might have to buy a new one. And it was that violent that it actually woke Woo up. Now, Woo's deaf, and I think she must have felt the vibration through the floor and up into the chair that she was lying on, because she jumped up with like this horrifically bewildered look on her face, as if to say, what's happened? I was like, oh, sorry. And then I was like looking at the headset going, oh, are you okay? But it was fine. And I turned it off and turned it back on again and made sure that all the lenses and everything were okay. But I thought, oh, for goodness sake. And it's something I'm not guilty of. If I've got a hold of something with 2 hands, normally it's okay. You know, I'm not like a clumsy person. But that just, I was just like, oh no. No, please no. It wasn't the best. But it's been an absolute godsend for exercise, and it really has. I've never been one for the gym much. I think they're a fairly pointless endeavour. I understand why people like going to the gym though, like I get it, but it's just not for me. I would rather be out in the fresh air, which is one of the reasons why I enjoy running so much. Beat Saber, and there's a fitness app that I use as well. I can't remember the name of it, but Beat Saber and that is working wonders for me just now till I get to my target weight, not my target weight as in the weight that I want to be, but my target weight as in where I need to be to go running. So slowly but surely I will get there. It's going to be a while yet though, but in the meantime I'll just keep Beat Sabering because I quite enjoy it. I do spend more time dancing about than actually trying to like get a good score. But yeah, it's fun. Super fun. If you don't know what Beat Saber is, it's kind of it's a rhythm game and you have two lightsabers. You have one in each hand and you stand in this big psychedelic funk circus type corridor and these blocks come towards you with arrows on them and you've got to slice the blocks. So it's like a cross between Fruit Ninja and Dance Dance Revolution and like a bit of Guitar Hero flung in for good measure. If those three conflab together, Beat Saber would be the child of it. And it's so accessible as well. Literally anyone can pick it up and play it. It's very intuitive. And Papa Gem has played it and Mama Gem has played it, and obviously there's different ability settings as well, so you can adjust that every time you play a song. And I personally think that the easiest setting is very easy, and I think they've done that on purpose to try and make it as accessible to everyone as possible. You know, something that you can play as a family if you like. It definitely helps. But I've actually got a video of Papa Gem playing it, and it was at Christmas when we got it, and it's really funny because he gets so engrossed in trying to hit the notes that he actually nearly knocks himself off balance and falls over. It's so funny, but he did really well with it as well. So it's quite obvious why it's popular. Mr. Gem doesn't have an ounce of rhythm in his entire body, so he's not really into it. I spend more time dancing about, and it's more about getting the physical exercise, you know, like really going for it. So I'm always bobbing about like an idiot when I'm playing it. But they've brought out, they bring out new song packs and you don't always have to pay for them, which is so refreshing as well, because a lot of these games, you know, once you buy the initial game, if you want any add-ons, they charge you more money for it. Beat Saber haven't done that, so they've brought out a couple of music packs, and it's you know, mainstream songs that people would know, and one of my favourite songs ever is on the most recent one, and it made me so happy. So that's obviously one of my favourite songs to Beat Saber to. I was singing along as I go as well until I've got absolutely no breath left. It is quite unnerving though, and Mr. Gem and I have had to have a chat about it because when I play I've always got earphones in as well. So bearing that in mind, you can't see anything that's going on round about you because you've got a virtual reality headset on, but also if you've got earphones in you can't hear anything either. So, you know, like someone could come in and rob my entire house, and if I was Beat Saber, I would be none of the wiser. I just wouldn't know. And there was one day where I'd been playing for like, I don't know, maybe 40 minutes or so I was like fairly into things and what was going on. And Mr. Gem came into the room and he tapped me on the shoulder mid-song. And once again, that was one of those ones where like I jumped about 6 feet in the air. You just about had to scrape me off the ceiling. So of course, took my headset off and I was like, don't ever do that again. I'm like, see when I've stopped waving my arms about, that's when you tap me on the shoulder, not like mid-song. So we have rules now. Okay, we have rules. I'm like, oh, don't do that. But Mr. Gem likes, just while we're talking about the VR headset, Mr. Gem likes, there's a boxing game on it. There's actually quite a few boxing games, but there's one in particular and he likes it because he says it's actually very realistic. And he's into that because he's kind of in the position now, a little bit of middle-age spread. And he's wanting to sort of try and trim himself down a bit again. So that's kind of his form of exercise, and he likes it because he can stop anytime he wants. So if he's really tired, he might only do like a couple of rounds, but at least he's still getting that exercise in. He says, whereas if you go to a gym or you join like a boxing club, when you're there and you're training, that's you're there. So he quite likes that. And I said to him, I'm not into boxing at all. I've never boxed in my life. But Mr. Jem said to me, he's like, you have to have a shot of this. He says, you'll burn a lot of calories doing that. So when you go into like, there's this bit, it's like a training ring, and you pick an AI partner, so a computer generated partner. And it's 3 minutes round, 3-minute rounds. And I did it on, again, like on an amateur level. And I did that first round of 3 minutes, and I thought I was going to throw up. I was absolutely knackered. My arms were just about hanging off. And I was like, oh, well, this is a bit, it's not fun. Like Beat Saber, that's fun. Swinging your arms about to the point where you can't breathe, that's not my idea of a good time. Said to Mr. Jem, I was like, just you do that one on your own. Like, I'm done. I would like to go back to that. I think, again, if I was a bit fitter, if I lose a bit more weight and get back out running and stuff, I'd probably be able to cope with something like that a bit better. But right now, I'm way too unfit for that. So a lot to be said for technology these days. Now, much as I try and avoid screens, and that's why most of my artwork, well, not most of it, all of my artwork is traditional, because I do spend a lot of time in front of a screen. The VR headset's been a great investment, it really has. Because I was kind of wondering whether, the novelty would wear off and then it was just going to be an expensive ornament sitting, lying about the house. But no, we've had it since Christmas, and this is August now. And it gets used, I would say, probably every other day. And then if we've got friends over, my best friend, she absolutely loves the VR headset. And she's not a gamer person at all. Like, she's really not, but she loves the VR headset. So when she comes over, she's always like, can we play some Beat Saber? Like, yes, we can. And it's nice as well for people that have never tried it. They can have a little shot of it. And that usually results in spending someone's like on it all night. But you can also, if you've got a Google Chromecast, you can cast it to the TV. So everyone else can see what the person that's actually in VR is seeing. So it's quite nice that way as well. And there's a really cool game for it, and it's like a bomb disposal game. Now that doesn't sound very exciting. I know that sounds terrifying, but basically the person that's got the VR headset on has a bomb in front of them, and there's like different panels, and it's basically like different puzzles that are on it. And everyone else in the room who can't see it, so you don't do this with Chromecast, but everyone else in the room has a bomb disposal manual. And the person with the headset on has to try and describe what's in front of them. And everyone else has got to find the pages in the manual and tell them how to disarm it. And it's not easy, especially if one or two of you have perhaps had a few tipples, But we've played that with our friends a couple of times, and that's really good as well. So lots of uses for it. Lots and lots of uses for it. Just wanting to darken down this section here a little bit. And again, we're talking about this bit down the side here. So I'm thoroughly impressed with it. I thought, is this just going to be, gimmicky? But no, it's not. I do know there's quite a lot of debate about effects on you of being in VR for too long. The good thing about the headset that I've got is it's not tethered. It's a self-contained unit, so you're not hooked up to a PC. But what that does mean is you have a limited battery life, because obviously it's powering itself rather than running off a computer. And the benefit to that is you're going to get maximum 2 hours playtime out the headset, and then the battery's flat. So it's actually a really good way of regulating your use as well. And I see that as a good thing, but there haven't been a lot of studies on younger people using VR and how it affects them, so I would be very wary. Because my friend was talking at one point about getting one for her son, and he's only 10, and I said to her, I was like, personally, if it was me, I would wait, because it's not just the effect on your eyes and things, but you are very, very immersed in what you're doing, and that's got to affect you psychologically. And obviously kids maybe aren't quite equipped to, be able to deal with that. Oh God, this is getting a deep conversation, isn't it? Let's talk about something a bit less complicated. Just before I do that, I'm going to take my Indigo pencil now that I've finished this little section, and I'm going to start just making things a little bit more dramatic in the darker areas. So again, I don't need to press hard here, because we really don't want this to look blue, we just want it to look shadowy. So if we don't press too hard, then we'll still be able to see a little bit of the colour underneath popping out. So just down the sides of these waterfall areas, and maybe a little flicky up from the bottom here. This is kind of similar to what we did with our mountain maybe around here. I actually don't have enough of the other pencil down there. I'll nip. Yeah, I'll go back with my burnt sienna here. Just darken that down. Yeah, oh, better. Better. Oh, what about this one? Shoddy standards here in the cave today. So I'm not taking the indigo all the way over to these edges that are sticking out, and it's just because I've decided to make this a highlighted area. I do want the contrast there so that it pops out. So I'm just stopping slightly short of that area where we'd put the burnt ochre down. There you go. So you can see how much just those couple of pencil strokes is making this area stand out, and that's exactly what we want. So let's take a wee zoom out then, just have a look at this on the whole picture. So you can see these colours are tying in with these off sides of the mountains, and I think that's enough. I did want it to be vibrant though, I didn't want it to be really dull and boring, and I think I've managed to capture that fairly well so far. So I'll move over and do this other side now, and I'm actually quite liking the fact that I've left that little bit of white there because it's just given it a bit of interest. So yeah, why not? So let's carry on over here, back to my sanguine pencil. Get another layer of this down. Ooh, another couple of layers, methinks, of burnt sienna. So I was having a think about the water. Obviously I'm trying to think, you know, a little bit in advance when I'm doing this. And I was wondering what you thought about using like sort of more turquoisey colours rather than blue colours. You know, head more into green. It was just a thought because I thought that might be quite fun. So I would like to hear your thoughts on that, please, if you want to leave a comment underneath and tell me whether you think turquoisey colours would look better or, you know, a more traditional blue would look better. To be fair, I think both would be okay because the blue that we've used in the sky is very, very subtle and I don't think it's going to cause us any issues. And there's going to be quite a lot of variation in the colours that I use down here anyway because we've been using the light source. You know, we've been relying on the light source quite a lot. But I just wondered what you thought about that, so I'd love your input on that, please. I was also very cheered to hear that several of you are either colouring this or you're planning on colouring it once I'm near the ends. There was somebody that did say they hate having a lot of whips at the same time and they're waiting until I'm on the last video and then they're going to start. Which is quite interesting. I find that quite interesting. I know though, a lot of you did say just after the colouring chats that we've done before that you would like to see them, you know, a bit thicker and faster. You don't want to have to wait so long in between videos, and I understand that. If it was me, I would want the same, but it's just squeezing it in between the other videos. Because you have to appreciate that there's people that watch the channel that aren't colourists and aren't really interested in listening to me witter on while I colour a page. So it's really, for me, it's about striking a balance, but I think we're doing okay with this one. And this introduction of like an odd bonus video on a Tuesday just to help, you know, keep the ball rolling, so to speak, that seems to be working quite well. So yeah, I'm quite happy that I'm getting a balance and we're still, you know, we're getting through this picture fairly quickly, because even by this point in some of the previous pictures, or to be on the 5th instalment, that would have been over the space of like nearly 3 months, which I agree is far too long to wait, so we don't need that. So I'm trying to find a balance, but I think we're doing better with this. But I can understand people wanting to wait until they've more or less got the whole shooting match before they start colouring. Like, I understand that entirely. Okay, moving on over. I'm going to leave the indigo till the end. I don't know why, but it just seems to work better for me. So again, I've just got my lightest pencil here, which is this burnt ochre colour. And I'll just put this lighter edge in first, try and avoid my bubbles. Assuming those are bubbles, they might be stones in the... Oh, I think they're stones. Oh, they might be stones. Well, no, because there's some down here that are shaded as well. No, they're bubbles. Okay. I got a bit excited with myself there. God. Oh dear. Simple things, guys, simple things. I'll grab my sanguine again. So I'm pleased to report as well that my dogs are on the mend. A couple of videos ago I mentioned that everyone wasn't well. Pip's not been great. She is on the mend, but it's very slow. I don't know what, the vet thinks she ate something that she shouldn't have eaten, but I've no idea what it was she ate, but it's affected her really badly. And she's actually lost quite a bit of weight. And that is like my worst nightmare, because that was how I lost my last collie, which it was horrendous. And I've been very stressed about it. And I did explain to the vet, because we're at a new vet's now because we've moved. And the first time I took her in, when I took her into the emergency surgery, I did explain to him, I said, like, I'm trying my hardest to stay level-headed about this, but you have to understand that, you know, this is what happened before, and my dog faded away, basically, and we had to put her down because she'd lost so much weight. So I was like, I'm not in a good place right now. And he was really understanding. He was super good, but he was a bit more optimistic than me naturally. I was much more sceptical, and I was right to be sceptical, because that's been well over a week and a half since it started, and she's still not right. And she's had antibiotics, she's had probiotics, you know, we've literally chucked everything at her, and it's only been in the last day or two that she's kind of starting to get back to normal. So yeah, that's been very stressful, say that of all things, for the same thing to happen. But unfortunately, Pip is one of those dogs that picks things up. She'll eat pretty much anything off the ground, and I've got to watch her like a hawk, and I do, and I think that's why I get stressed about it as well, because I feel as if it's my fault, when I know realistically I can't have eyes in the back of my head. You know, I can't watch her every step of the way, all day, every day. But yeah, the main thing is she's on the mend now, and we're just hoping that this continues and she can get back to normal really quickly, because she's looking quite skinny, so that's fine. And Jock had the opposite problem. He's fine as well. We gave him some pureed pumpkin and that didn't take long. And I didn't know that was a thing. The other thing the vet told me as well is olive oil, if you can get your dog to eat it. Not all dogs will take it, because obviously it's a slightly odd taste. But yeah, a spoonful of olive oil in their food apparently helps with constipation as well. So we found out maybe the medication that he's on for his itchy skin is contributing to it. So we now have to keep an eye on him and just give him some pumpkin in with his food. Not all the time, but even every couple of days, just to keep him regular. So that's delightful too. And it's Woo's ears are ongoing. It's just one of those things, but she seems to be in relatively good spirits as well. So we're on the mend. In terms of canines, we're on the mend, which is good. Less stress, Gem as well. So we're very lucky though. The vets isn't that far from us, and it's quite a big surgery as well, so you can usually get an appointment fairly quickly, which is nice. Kind of takes the pressure off a little bit. This side seems really patchy. Yeah, I think I need to cover up some of these white bits more. So yeah, it's been I have actually been quite stressed this week. I really have. And normally, although I'm busy, like there's a difference between busy and stressed, and normally I'm just busy, but I have felt very, very stressed out this week, and I haven't felt like that for a long time. So yeah, that was a bit of a curveball. I think to myself, I'm not even into harvest yet, and I'm stressed already. I'm like, oh no. I'm going to try and get around these bubbles a bit more. I feel as if they're impeding my progress here. Okay, that's a bit better. I'm a bit happier with that now. Okay, into this last little ridge here. God, this is taking longer than I thought. I'm pressing quite heavily on that right hand edge, and then just lightening up my pressure the further left I go, so that I can blend it in with the sanguine. Don't need to be quite so careful here, I don't think, just because it's this outside edge. And I find this easier with a slightly less sharp pencil. You can see there the end of my pencil's not particularly sharp. I just feel like it doesn't need to be for these sections. If we're putting lots of detail in, I would sharpen it more often, but... Okay, indigo time. See, again, I feel that this edge here is too pale. I don't feel as if it's blended or layered well enough either, for that matter. Okay, so in behind my waterfall. So again, I'm going to bring this indigo a lot further out in this section, as I talked about. The other thing that made me giggle in the vets, there was a lady who had a little Springer Spaniel, and he was obviously a very young dog. I mean, he was, he wasn't a tiny puppy, but he was definitely still a puppy. And he was excited about everything. And Pip is quite wary of strange dogs. She's fine once she gets to know them. So she's watching this little Spaniel bouncing about. And when the lady had come out of the examination room, obviously I was sitting waiting with Pip. And the lady behind the counter said to her, you didn't weigh him, he needs to go on the scale so that we can put it on his file. So she said, oh, okay. So she took this little spaniel over to try and get him to sit on the scale. Now, the scale's probably about 3 times the size of him. So there was, he had plenty of room for manoeuvre. He just needed to, stay still or plunk his bum down. And it took her, 8 or 9 attempts to get him to stay still so she could get a weight reading. And I was sitting chuckling away to myself. But it was just he was distracted by everything. It was like, oh, look, that thing's moving. I want to go over there. She's like, no, you've got to sit there. And Pip's watching with great interest because obviously, again, just being collies, they're so easy. When you take our dogs into the vet, you say, right, wait there, and they just stand there. And you know, you're one and done kind of thing. This woman was having absolutely no luck with this spaniel. He was absolutely adorable as well. He was lovely, but he was just excited about anything that moved, which obviously is very typical of spaniels. That was quite funny. I was trying not to laugh out loud. Like, she couldn't see that I was laughing because I had a mask on. I was just like laughing quietly behind my mask. But that served my entertainment. I say it was the expression on Pip's face as if to say, what is that stupid dog doing? Like, why is he not just sitting down? Very funny. I think I'm happy with that. Now these little wall sections in here, I don't know what I'm going to do with the holes, but around these edges here, I'm just going to grab the burnt sienna, which is our darkest brown. I don't know why I started with this one. There was no logic behind that whatsoever, but still, it's done now. Oh, goodness me. And just to keep things simple, because I don't want this to get too crazy, I'm going to take my dark indigo, and at the top edge, I'm going to press hard, and I'm just going to lighten up as I come down, and then do the same at the bottom and bring it up. And then that little space in the middle, I'm just going to layer up some of that burnt sienna, blend it in. So it still looks like part of, you know, the terrain that it's coming out of, which obviously it is. But there's just that little bit of variation there so that it doesn't blend into that front surface too much. And I know that's not terribly exciting, but again, it's one of those parts of the picture, it's so minor. Like, if you want to deliberate and get every contour, by all means, fill your boots. I'm not saying not to do it, but with situations like that, I just want to make things easy for myself. And that's exactly what I'm doing. Now, my gut reaction is to fill this in black in here. No, we don't do that. Again, we're going to take our darkest colour, which is the burnt sienna, and we're going to put a layer of that down in each of our 3 little cubby holes here. And then I'm going to take a colour called Dark Sepia. And again, I'll show you this in my swatch book. So this is Dark Sepia here. So it's like a greyish, brownish colour, as opposed to, you know, we talk about Payne's grey as a sort of greyish, bluish colour. And I just thought this would be nice for the interior here. So I'm going to stick a layer of that down, see how it looks, because I do want it to be quite dark. And I'm just going to leave a tiny little pale crescent moon on that one side in each of these little holes. Just because I can, no other reason. Maybe there's some light shining and reflecting in there, I don't know. I'll let you make up your own story about that. And what this means as well, because this is nice and dark, see when we come to colour in our water, it's really going to pop from those little holes. So that's kind of my thinking behind that. Okay, so let's talk about these, let's just tidy up these little green areas. These are stones here, I do believe. Either that, yeah. I thought for a minute they might be like flower buds, thinking it would maybe tie in with what's going down here, but these ones look like remarkably like stones. So I'm going to take my dark sepia, just because I had it in my hand anyway, and I'm going to work my way over all of these stones, just over that whole surface area. Now you can see that these stones have got facets on them, they've got sides on them. And we know we've got our light source going on here, and there might be some light hitting these stones. So if we just take it one facet at a time, this top side here, now I'm going to sharpen my pencil for this because this is quite a weeny wee area. Now that's what I call pointy point. So this is a top edge, so again, if we just think about our light source, there might be a bit of light hitting that. Do something like that. And this one in here is going to be really dark. So a couple of layers on there. And we can vary the degrees in which we do this. Again, I wouldn't be too scientific about it. It's a tiny part of the picture. If you have a little bit of variation in there, it just makes that part of the picture look a wee bit more interesting. No hard and fast rules. That's the lovely thing about colouring, as we all know. You do what you like, and if it looks good, well done. So you can see why I thought that looked like a flower bud. Do you guys think it looks like a flower bud? I do. We'll do the same here. So just a really light hand, quick scoot over. There we go. And then we can start thinking about each. Don't think too hard about it. I have a habit of that myself. For these leaves round the side, I want these to be really, really dark green, like really dark green. So I'm going to consult my swatch book. And I think what I'd like to do is, I would like to take this juniper green but have it like this, you know, like really layer it up, really go for it. So I'm going to dig that out from my green selection. Now we have used the juniper green before, we did use it on our broccoli trees. So again, it's not a new pencil, it's one we've already been using. But I'm literally going to go in with flat colour with this. Really heavy pressure. It's one of the very, very few times I'll do this. Again, because these leaves, they're framing the picture, they're not necessarily integral to what's going on in the picture. And the leaves look pretty flat to me as well, which suggests they would be on the shadow side, you know, like well, the side that's facing us. So I'm not going to take any time to deliberate over this. And this colour, when pressed down heavily like this, stands out really well against the greens that we've used for the grass as well. So that's given us contrast. And contrast is always good when we're doing things like this. There we go. Oh, dagnabbit, there's a pile of stones in the middle as well. Oh, right, I'll go back to those in a minute. Honestly, the number of times I've sat and looked at this picture, you think I would have noticed things like that by now. Clearly not. Let's jump over here and do these ones. I like these ones because they go all the way up in behind here. Peeking out at the back. I quite like having a nice strong colour at the edge of an image like this. See when it has a border like this? I really like having a nice rich colour next to the white of the paper. I think it really sets it off. And I will bear that in mind when we move down to the bottom to these flowers. I'm going to use really bright, vibrant colours down there as well, so that we get that same effect. Okay, so I'm going to just jump back very quickly to my dark sepia, just to do these wee stones in the middle. Get them sorted out. There we go. Okay, there we go. We are coming along nicely. I think we'll just squeeze in our little deer friend while we're at it, seeing as we're here anyway. I feel like he's been abandoned so many times. Like I keep saying every video, like we'll do our deer, and we haven't done it. So I'm going to sharpen up my burnt ochre, which is our lightest colour that we were using up here. That's a nice colour for a deer, why not? And we'll give him a layer all over. I wonder what's happened to his tail. It must be tucked down. They've not given him a tail, bless him. Just get a layer of colour down all over. Now I want to keep him light so that he stands out against everything else that we've done here. So although he's going to be coloured in, he is going to be a fairly fair deer. So I'm just going to stick with this one colour. Now the light's coming from behind, so it's kind of difficult to put shading on this. But I'm going to darken down that leg in there. And I'm going to stick just a line there. Maybe to help show a bit of curvature in his, you know, in his framework. Goodness me. We'll make him dark under his belly, and as I come up, I'll lighten up that pressure again. So maybe the light's just catching his back a wee bit, which would therefore mean that he's going to be dark under here as well, or dark hair, not dark, but dark hair. And it's just to give him a bit of dimension. I'm not getting into the technicalities of the colourings and markings of deer, because that's just too much. Again, he's weeny, he's only a little part of the picture. So even if you just put in a few accents here and there, you know, just a few lines like I just did there, that's going to be more than enough so that he blends in with the picture, but still looks, you know, reasonably good. And his antlers we'll use a different colour. I'm going to use the burnt sienna. So again, that's the darkest pencil that we've just been using, but I'm going to use this very lightly, very, very lightly. Really, we could do with them having like bright orange antlers or something, but there you are. So we've taken the white of the paper away, but it's still standing out a little bit against the trees behind it because we've used a very light pressure. Because if we start to layer that up, it is going to darken down and it's just going to, you know, sort of fold into the broccoli trees, which we don't want at all. Okay, right, we'll call it quits there today, guys. There we go. We're coming along nicely. I am enjoying this picture so much, and I was thinking about what I was talking about last time about doing things in sections. I'm a very methodical person. Again, my degree and my background for work is scientific, and I love logical processes like this. And the fact that I've literally been able to do this in sections all the way down pleases me no end, and I think that's adding to my enjoyment of colouring this picture, apart from the fact it's turning out better than I thought it would in my head, if that makes sense. So I am really pleased. So next time we're going to tackle our water, and that's going to take a bit of doing, especially here because this is going to get quite complicated. And then I think the final video will probably be our swans and our flowers around the bottom here, and we will be done, which I'm a little bit sad about. But anyway, I've had great fun today. I'm sorry my stories haven't been as amusing today. Normally I've got funny stories to tell you, but I've had quite a normal week by my usual standards. So thanks very much for coming to hang out with me, guys. I really appreciate it, and I hope you've enjoyed yourself today too. So all that remains is to say to you to stay safe and please take care of each other. Have a great day, everyone. Bye for now.